Prologue. Camping Days. Friday, October 8th, 2004. Night. Robert Berger frowned at his 8-year-old daughter as she stood on the muddy bank of Coosel Creek in khaki shorts and a dirty white camp t-shirt. The water burbled, night birds trilled, and insects chittered as she copied his posture and crouched to submerge her fingers into cold water under the dim glow of a hanging lantern. Ignoring his frown, she peered at him hopefully. "It's good," she said. "I think it's just too fast, Jenny," Robert said from a few paces upstream. "The rain swelled it, and I think it's just going to sweep us down way too fast." "No, come on," Jenny said, swishing her hands around. "Dad, it would be so cool. We'll be like explorers." Robert shook his head. "No, I don't think so. At this speed, we won't even be able to see if there are branches in the way. It's a bad idea." "We could put a lantern in the front and one in the back. Come on, you promised we would." "That was before it rained so much, honey," he said. "Maybe it'll be down by tomorrow night, and we can do it then." "But we won't be out here tomorrow night. Camping days will be over," Jenny pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. She was right. Tomorrow was the parade and the festival in the park. There would be sun, music, and food, and he knew they would be too exhausted by nightfall to bring their boat back out. He could see her point that this was probably their last chance to take a night canoe trip for camping days. Of course, he thought, they could always come down next weekend. "If we put a lantern in the front and one in the back, it'll be like we have spotlights all around us." She stood and ran over to their campsite, which consisted of a shabby, but sturdy, little shack of plywood with an old curtain nailed to the inside of the door. She ducked inside and emerged a moment later with another battery-powered lantern. "How's it going to stay on?" Robert asked. I guess I'll hold it." He saw the frustration in her face and wondered if she had imagined the lights hanging before and behind them, as if they had some fancy gondola instead of their simple, little two-person canoe. "So I have to do all the paddling myself?" He laughed. She turned and gave him a withering look. "Can you keep the light up in front of you the whole time?" Jenny held the lantern aloft like she was a figure from a bygone time, casting her light out, searching for ships dashed against a treacherous shore. The orange glow cast shadows deep into her eyes and under her nose, aging her and exaggerating the earnest plea on her face. "You're not going to be able to hold it up like that, but can you keep it steady on your knees the whole time? Or on the bow in front of you?" Jenny climbed inside of the canoe and put the lantern on the bow, kneeling down behind it. Robert smiled. "All right, let's take a look upstream at the bend. If that looks rough, we'll bring our canoe up there, and then we can take it back down here. If it looks okay, we can grab one from the rack at the pool and take that. But we aren't going to go much past here, okay?" "But why?" Jenny asked, not looking at all like she was getting what she wanted. "Because if we go much further, then I'm going to have to try to carry the canoe back all by myself." "Not if we go all the way down to the second shed," Jenny said. "Is the second shed lit up?" Robert asked. He stood and wiped his hands on his own khaki shorts. "Maybe," she said with a shrug, but they both knew it wasn't. He raised his eyebrows, and she relented by dropping her shoulders and lowering her lantern. "All right, come on then," Robert said, waving her on. She hurried after him as he trudged along beside the ponderosa pines. They walked for 10 minutes in silence as Robert listened to the water grow louder the closer they got to the bend. Coosel Creek ran north from the pool under the falls until it bent east, where it merged with Evans Creek. Normally the meeting was gentle, little more than a ripple across the surface as the two waters became one. But that night there were rapids rolling white in the light of high-held lamps, loud with rushing, rumbling pour-overs and holes. "Okay, so we'll start about 20 feet down that way," Robert said, pointing back the way they had come. "What? No, we can do that easily," Jenny said. "If we had a raft? Sure. But with a canoe in the dark? Not a chance." "You don't think you can do it?" she challenged. "Like I said, in a raft it would be okay. And alone in a kayak, I could definitely do it. Or maybe with someone else paddling the canoe. But I've got to do it all by myself, so no. We'll bring ours down and put it in down there. But we could, she started, pointing up the creek toward the waterfall whose characteristic low rumble had grown to a roar. No, he said, cutting her off. We're going to do it my way, or we'll wait till tomorrow night. Or maybe next weekend. Once more accepting defeat, she flopped her arms down dramatically. Fine, Jenny exhaled before starting back toward their camp. Robert watched her go, thinking to himself, if this is how she is at 8, what the hell am I in for when she turns 13? He started after her, but froze at the sight of a dark, shadowy figure emerging from the trees. For a moment, Robert's heart raced with dread, and his imagination filled with pictures of uncanny specters. But when he raised his lantern, he laughed. Freddie! Hey, how's it going? Oh, just dandy, Federico said, pulling a face. The tribe is slowly torturing me to death. How about you? Robert listened for a moment and heard at least 3 of Federico's 5 boys arguing about something. I feel for you, Robert said. Thinking of drowning yourself? Federico raised his eyebrows as if the idea were intriguing. Sadly, no. Just taking a minute's break to drain the lizard. What about you? Jenny driving you out of your mind yet? Only a little. She has convinced me to do a little night canoeing. Yeah, I hear that. Izzy's already bossing me around and got her brothers doing her bidding. Carlos tried eating a banana with the peel on because she told him that's where all the vitamins were. They'll end up killing us, Robert said, rocking on his heels. If we're lucky, Federico said. Dad! Jenny's voice wafted down the creek toward them. Speak of the devil, Robert said. Good luck with the mob. Be careful out there, Federico said. Sounds like it's moving. Robert said he would, nodded, and then picked up his pace to catch up with his daughter. 10 minutes later, as Robert pushed the canoe out into the creek, he felt the currents tug immediately and wondered if he had made a mistake. Make sure that light is steady, he said, plunging one of the paddles into the water and paddling backward twice on one side and then twice on the other, trying to slow them down. This was probably a bad idea, he said, dropping the oar back in on his right and pressing it hard against the hull to rudder them toward the center of the creek. The water's going a lot faster than I thought, Jen. No, it's fine. Look, she said, pointing ahead to the darkness. It gets slower up there. Robert squinted into the darkness and saw no sign that what she said was true. He wasn't even sure a person could see such a thing in the daytime, let alone the dark. I don't think so, he said. Then we'll get back to camp in like a minute, right? Jenny said. At least that made some sense, and Robert thought that he could already see the lantern on the tree branch not too far away. He took a deep breath and resigned himself to a harrowing, if brief, journey. Their trip down Kusel Creek took 3 minutes. For the first 2, Jenny held the light up and called out branches when they got too close. Twice they had to duck, and once one of the branches scraped Robert's temple. He was already deeply regretting the experience when he saw the man standing on the north bank across from their camp. Dread and confusion returned. The man appeared to be wearing a heavy rain slicker with a hood, and he was holding his own curious lantern high in an outstretched hand. It appeared to be a metal cage surrounded by a pale green nimbus that hardly touched the world around him, suggesting only the outlined sketches of ground, trees, and water's surface. Even so, the light was enough to show something moving in the creek, a deeper, more perfect shade of black than the water around it. It snaked out from before the man and darted toward them. For a moment, Robert wondered if he was dreaming or hallucinating. Maybe he was suffering some kind of stroke or aneurysm. When the dark form broke the surface next to their canoe, showing rows of tiny, diamond-shaped black scales that reflected the light of Jenny's lantern, he thought he might be going crazy. But when it dove back under the surface and slammed into their keel, rocking them dangerously, he knew that whatever he was seeing was real enough to be afraid of. Shit, Jenny, you okay? Dad, what was that? Was that a snake? She had seen it too. Part of Robert's brain was relieved. The other part slid into deeper terror. I'm not sure. I need to get us to the bank. Hold on, okay? If you need to put the light down, you just put it in the bottom of the boat and hold on. Stay low. He ruddered the canoe again, this time angling toward the south bank. The boat rocked harder, almost tipping them over. The creature, whatever it was, crashed into his paddle and almost stripped it from his hands. Shit, he said. He looked around frantically and got a better look at the man standing on the bank. He had been wrong. The man wasn't wearing a slicker. Instead, a heavy cloak bunched around his shoulders and cowled up over his head, hiding most of his face. Only his mouth, dry, cracked, and cruel, was visible. Pale, it smiled in the dim emerald light, and from its mouth wriggled a mass of what Robert thought looked like worms. Worms were spilling out and over the man's chin. It was then that Robert Berger, known to his friends as Bobby, believed that he was going to die. His brain kicked into overload, and the world slowed down. This is what you see when you die. The ordered, sane world falls away, and madness breaks in. I thought I'd see an angel, but instead it's this. Oh God, please help Jenny. Please help my daughter. The boat knocked again, and this time Robert's paddle was wrenched from his hands. Hold on, baby, he shouted, gripping the sides of the canoe. Help! Help! Someone help us! He screamed into the night, hoping to rouse the others who slumbered in their little wooden shelters along Coosle Creek. In response, voices rose from the darkness, calling back. Who is it? One person yelled. Where are you? That voice sounded like Federico. The creek, he shouted. Help us! Robert opened his mouth again to scream, to say that Jenny was with him. He meant to tell them to save her, but his words died as he was thrown overboard. For a second, in the darkness, he thought that this was it. This was death. They would both drown. He flailed in a creek that would have normally been too shallow to cover them, and found his footing on the rocky bed. He planted his feet and pushed against the bottom. His head broke the surface, and he thought the world had disappeared. He was in total darkness. Dad! Jennifer screamed, her voice echoed oddly, and Robert realized that they both had come up under the overturned canoe. Baby, Robert said, pulling himself along toward her and ducking under one of the seats after bumping his head on it. Baby, we've got to get out of here. Take a deep breath and hold it. We're going to swim for the side. Stay close to me. Actually, hold on to me. I'll swim, okay? Just hold on. But if you need to, you push away to save yourself. No, she said even as she grabbed at him. She was crying, clutching, her fingers digging deep into his shoulders. He could feel her trembling with shock and fear. You do it. We'll make it together. But if I can't, you go. You don't wait for me. You do not wait for me. Now, ready? Robert felt something brush past his leg. No, ignore it. You get her to safety. You get her to safety. If it's the end, you at least do that. Deep breath. They took their breaths together and went down into darkness, with Jenny clutching him tightly. When they broke the surface again, the man was standing on the bank, the wavering green light before him. For a moment, Robert wondered how that could be. The creek must have pulled them down 20 feet already. How had the man moved so quickly? Jenny pulled him, and he turned. On the south bank, a man was hurrying toward them. Thank God, Robert thought. Help us, he managed to choke out as water forced its way into his mouth. The man, tall and stocky, was wearing a real rain slicker and hat, and was holding his arms out to catch their attention. Jenny, swim to him, Robert sputtered. He felt her pulled away from him and heard the splash of her body being sucked under the water. Robert forgot the two men on the creek's banks and dove down, as shouting voices broke through the pines, and people rushed to the creek with their own bright lights, searching for the man who had called for help. Down into the darkness he went, praying that she had taken a breath before she went under.